What is up, my little potatoes? Vepsis here, bringing you guys the WBE Singles Division power rankings for the week 4, and this time around I won't be actually covering matchup by matchup due to the fact that I have had a lot less time to do this, and this might be something that I might have to do for the regular season, and have to pick my weeks when I actually have the proper time to do it, like I have been able to do these videos on prior weeks. So my apologies for that. I do plan to bring it back at very least consistently for the playoffs in itself, and then put a lot more time into it, but due to the fact that I have been more busy with my own work in itself, I'm gonna be covering just my power rankings, and doing that I will be touching just a little bit how the battles in itself went. But now let's jump and see how my power rankings turn out after seeing the week 4 battles. And these are going to be my power rankings after week 4 battles have been done, and we're going to be starting covering these top to bottom, starting with MV being at number 1, who went up against Uzikano this week, and he said with his contact early on in the battle really gave him big advantage, which was the sub toxic protect set, and this just disrupted the entire game plan from Uzikano's side, and he didn't really have a good way to get around it, and this enabled the Hex Dragapult at the middle and end of the battle really do a lot of work, thanks to the fact that so many things were statused from Uzikano's side, what MV was able to do, and he was able to win this in a 2-0 fashion versus Uzikano, who probably has been now thus far the toughest coach he had to play this season, and this just proves that he can not only beat the lower ranked teams in the league, but he can also go up against the higher ranked teams so highly regardless coaches as well, and be able to beat them as well. So solid job from the MV. And at number 2 we have Joey aka Pokiem, yet again just like in previous weeks, remaining at number 2, and he had a very solid performance this week, even though ironically enough he had this time around bad luck in his battle. Unlike in the previous week, he has had a little bit of good luck, but this time around the battle started off rough for him when he missed a couple of the hurricanes with his Specs Noivern at the very start of the battle, and due to the fact that he lost his Noivern early on, and this set him on the back foot a little bit as the battle was progressing, but he was able to keep his composure and start playing aggressively to get himself back at the advantage position versus Steve this week, and this was basically how he was able to utilize his Life Orb Darmanitan, make the proper predictions when he had to, and also at the very end of the battle utilizing it to really nullifying the biggest threat to him, which was the Iron Defense called My Rio Nucleus, and knowing this to be the biggest threat to him after he dropped his Dark type at the free agency. So solid performance from Joey, and keeping his number 2 slot this week. And as our new number 3 team from this week will be Moet and his Wakanda Vivas, and while he did not have as impressive or dominating win like the first 2 which we covered this week, it was still a very close and clutch win regardless over Callum this week. And while this battle wasn't something that he had a control over early part of the battle after he lost his main Sun abusing in Venusaur way too early, and this was also part of the fact that Callum was very prepared for it as well, he was able to pull it back regardless with the Stockpile Toxic Recover Marini, which was able to therefore shut down completely Callum's team, and Callum was somewhat really unprepared for this kind of stally preparation for Moet's side, and this worked out really well for Moet. He was able to slow down the entire battle for himself and kind of dictate how it's gonna be going from there. And while it wasn't the prettiest game to watch, I can still respect that when that's your only way to win the battle, Moet did it, and he was able to play it properly and give himself that 1-0 win this week, and moving into number 3. And as my number 4 team in my power rankings will be Antarctic Aces losses caused by Visually, and this was a tough loss versus a team that has been on a rise in my power rankings versus the Triple IP Plups, so I didn't want to punish him too much and moving too much down where he used to be in the number 3, but the big takeaway from this battle, which ultimately to me cost him the battle, was the way he didn't get the full value out of his crafty after being in a very good position with it early on in the battle after beating Conkeldurr surprisingly enough 1v1, but the way that he didn't preserve it for the late game as well, knowing how well it can still do work, was to me the biggest mistake. And ironically enough, it actually also meant that the Curse Umbreon, which was a surprising set from his opponent's side to bring, it was able to win a lot easier after the Scrafty was gone. So moving on, to the number 5 team. And at number 5 will be Nightmaker Nuzleeps, coached by Automatic, and this was his best result thus far this season regards to differential, being a 3-0 win over Starcharge, coached by Feint Attacks. And this was also a case of him not having to do almost any predictions versus his opponent. It was more so due to the fact that he had a better preparation compared to his opponent, which allowed him to get a very safe win versus his opponent. And while you can say that, well, maybe we need to see more out of him and having to actually outplay his opponent, which would be something that I would love to see, I'm not gonna fault him for being able to just play it safe and allow his team to perform like it was designed, and therefore he's able to move up one slot in my power rankings this week. And now let's cover the number 6 one. And at number 6 we are gonna be having WBE Singles, coached by James W. Pick, and the battle in itself, we know how this went with covering earlier the Antarctic Aces coached by Visually. So he was able to beat his opponent very well. To me, from his side, it was more so kind of dicey how he over-predicted with his Conkeldurr versus this Crafty and allow it to become a lot bigger threat than it seemed to be at first glance. To me, that was one of the mistakes that I saw from his side, but barring that, the middle part of the battle, how he utilized his Frost Slash and how he preserved the Curse Umbreon in the back, and once this Crafty, thankfully for him, went down, it actually allowed that set to really work a lot better than given credit for at team preview. So solid job for him, and he's going to be the biggest rising team from this week, moving 4 slots out of the number 10 into my number 6. And at number 7 we are gonna be having Dundee Dealers, coached by Callum, and similar what we already touched on versus Moet. This battle I don't have to cover too much. To me, Moet was able to clutch it out the battle with bringing a very precise set that Callum wasn't prepared for, so I don't want to punish Callum too much this week. One, going up against a very tough opponent and a highly ranked team, I don't want to punish him too much because it was a very close battle as we saw, and I think like preparation wise he was very well prepared. He played it pretty much as well as he could have, but it's just one of those cases that the opponent just brought that one set that he just wasn't prepared for, and I won't be punishing him too much because it wasn't necessarily something many people would have seen coming. And at number 8 we're gonna be having Chimpact and his Philadelphia Scissors, and this is gonna be the first time we got to touch on his battle, which was versus the Battle Rogue Battle Freeze, coached by That's +1, and this was a narrow 1-0 loss to Chimpact actually. And therefore, because it was a narrow loss and it was actually quite unlucky how it happened, because he was supposed to win this, I think, in 1-0 fashion with his Zeraora versus the Mimikyu, but the Mimikyu was able to get a critical hit on him, and that, thanks to the fact that actually turned out the battle just narrowly to his opponent advantage. So I don't feel like punishing Chimpact this week, and it's more so due to the fact that teams that were closely behind him weren't able to make a big step this week either. So while there was an expectation as well before seeing the battle that Chimpact should win this, and maybe with a decent differential, thanks to the fact that other teams around him didn't take advantage of him losing this week, considering my power rankings and how the loss happened to him, I didn't feel like I needed to move him down this week. And at number 9 we're gonna be having Detroit Steel Winds, coached by Seabat, and while this was a battle that we will be giving a lot of credit to his opponent, who was Pittsburgh Pictures, coached by Nexus, I will have to rank, unfortunately, Seabat down in the rankings, because this was a 4-0 loss to him versus a team that hasn't yet won this season yet in the WBE, and thanks to that and how he seemed to be very underprepared and not ready to play around versus a sub-toxic Protect Salazzle, I had to punish him unfortunately from that, and it's also partly due to the fact that there were teams like WBE Clubs rising up heavily in the rankings that also pushed him a little bit further down in the rankings. So unfortunately for Seabat, this was a rough week for him, even though he has been playing quite well thus far, but losing to a team that hasn't won yet this season in a very rough fashion, I cannot overlook that, and he's gonna be number 9. And at number 10 we are gonna be having Bullet Punch Club, coached by Uzi Gunner, and this, like I said earlier when we covered MV was very well prepared and was able to disrupt Uzi Gunner's game plan, And it was a case that Usikano was really on the back foot thanks to the MV's solid bring and how to utilize it early on the battle. And Usikano was pretty much playing uphill battle from there. And I want to give a little bit credit to him that he was able to make it a lot closer than it seemed to look out to be. How the early battle went. And it was only a 2-0 loss to the number 1 team in the entire league in itself. So even though it was a loss, and a loss that he really did not need to get, considering that he really needs these wins around this time of the season to get himself in a solid spot in a playoff race, I will not punish him too much, thanks to the fact that he was able to stay in the fight and push MV the hardest than anyone else has been able to do this season. And as my number 11 in my power rankings will be Butterrock Butterfreeze, coached by That's +1, and he's able to move 2 slots because while he got lucky versus his opponent and he was able to get that 1-0 win over Chimpact and his Philadelphia Scissors, I do want to give him a credit that he was able to put still, regardless if he won or not, it was going to be a 1-0 result, one of the other side regardless, and to me that was already a positive step from him, besides the fact that he came into the battle in a very good mood, and a shout out to him for doing that. I think the fact that he was able to give such a close fight versus one of the most skilled battlers in the WB this season, I wanted to give him credit for that as well, and able to move up a couple of slots this week. And therefore showing that or seeing now that he can definitely give us good battles throughout the season. And as our number 12 team in this power rankings will be Pittsburgh Pixels, coached by Nexus, and like I said earlier with the C battle who he went up against, he was able to win in 4-0 fashion, his first win of the season. Really happy for Nexus, and he was able to bring the one correct set that completely disrupted Seabad, which was the sub-toxic protect Salasso random. The way he was able to utilize that throughout the battle, disrupting his opponent, was really the key factor what he allowed him to win and put himself in a very favorable spot for the late game, which he did not throw away. So shout out to Nexus, he was able to not only get his first win of the season, but also moving up in my rankings with 2 slots into my number 12. And as my number 13 team in my power rankings will be Starjust, coached by Fein Attacks, and I have to move him 2 slots down due to the fact that teams just ahead of him were able to move on in the rankings, but he didn't really make it tough for me either. The way he was playing versus Automatic, I think he just seemed a little bit underwhelming with his preparation. I didn't see really solid strategy from his side, how he's going to be able to beat Automatic unless his opponent would be giving the battle to him. But the way Automatic just played it very safely versus him, he did not really make him punish for those obvious plays. And the fact that he completely overlooked the fact that the early battle, the Rotom move was shown to be Choice Scarf after it outsped his Lucent Rock Dust, and he completely missed that in itself, and it came as a surprise for him later on that it showed out to be Choice Scarf. I cannot overlook that, and I have to, unfortunately for his sake, moving down 2 slots at my number 13. And as my number 14 team from this week will be Sin City Scissors, coached by Patty Chills, and for me, he was able to move up 1 slot in my rankings thanks to the fact that he took almost full advantage versus the weakest team in the entire league, being the Gorgia Gummies, and got himself a 5-4 win, which is a big win for himself. Just like Nexus, it was his first win of the season, which he desperately needed in itself. And while he got pretty lucky the way he got around the Clefable set that his opponent brought, which I thought should have been a lot bigger of an issue to him for the late game than it turned out to be, because the way his opponent played it. Overlooking that, everything else went fine for him, how he played the battle, and I have to give him credit from that, and moving him 1 slot at number 14 in my rankings. And as my number 15 team in my power rankings will be Steve, aka Magnitude, and his Milwaukee Southpark. And this is really unfortunate for Steve, that while he is trying to get out of this slump where he has had these narrow losses thus far this season and still looking for his first win, he has to go up against the New York Trippies, coached by PokeMD, and is suffering a not a tough loss, but a loss regardless. And it mainly was due to the fact that he didn't fully take advantage of his Rio Nucleus set, which was Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Recover, which had a phenomenal matchup versus opponent, and he just didn't prioritize the Iron Defense over Calm Mind boost, which would have helped him versus the Darmanita, which completely nuked the crap out of his Rio Nucleus since he didn't go for the Iron Defense. So that was the one thing that I took away from that battle, that I was like, okay Steve, that would have been something that you could have done better and help you giving the chance to win this battle, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and he's gonna be moving down 3 slots to be my number 15. And as my dead last team in the number 16 slot in my power rankings will be the Gorgia Gumis coached by Fruit Berries, and this is not a nice feeling to do to anyone. That you always have to push them down to be the last team in your power rankings, but I cannot deny the fact that I just don't see, when I watch his battles, one way that he can win this battle. What did he do good on his preparations that allows him to give a chance to win these battles? I just don't see it, and that's a really tough sign to have in a draft league format, if you don't have good ways, even a preparation wise, to see yourself winning the battles. How am I going to move him any further in the standings, especially when he loses 5-4 fashion versus a team that was prior to this week number 15 team in my power rankings. I just cannot move him higher anywhere from here, even trying to see any positives out of a 5-4 loss. It's not happening. I need to see more time and effort put into his preparations, and maybe some changes on his roster that makes it more threatening, allows him to have more ways to win the battles. But that's going to be my power rankings for the week 4 in the WBE Singles Division in the Season 6. Let me know down below in the comment section how you felt this to be, better or worse compared to the way it have been done thus far. I know I'm not providing the weekly recaps in a sense that I'm covering each matchup like I've been doing, but I'm trying to use this way to do this, cause this is a lot more efficient for me to do along with my work. So hopefully you don't mind this too much. I might have to do this every now and then throughout the regular season, but for the playoffs I will bring back the concept that I've been doing thus far. But for now, I had to do it this way around. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you are new, so you won't be missing out the power rankings on the upcoming weeks, or my draft league content that I do provide on my channel as well. But thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm gonna be seeing you guys later.